You guys all are aware that CM Punk released a new podcast with Colt Cabana, basically going after WWE. Well, it wasn't necessarily a shoot on WWE. At least that's what he said. That wasn't his motivation, but he was very, very critical of how they do things. So let's just spend a couple minutes to talk about it. Overall, Nick, what do you think about what Punk had to say?
It was very enlightening, the way they handle things like health issues, and I guess it's kind of nice to get confirmation about the whole independent contractors deal. Just the fact that they either couldn't or wouldn't diagnose and treat what became a full-blown MRSA infection by the time Punk left. It just blows my mind. The fact that can go on back there.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that, Nick. That's an amazing thing to just... I mean, that seems to be like the biggest point out of the whole thing, was that there's a major health issue, and they didn't do a damn thing about it. The other thing, when questions were raised about, hey, pay-per-views are changing, you're doing this network thing, how's that changing our buy rate, or our payouts for pay-per-views? Never got a straight answer. Never got an actual answer other than from Vince.
Yeah.
And just for those out there, the MRSA infection, which by the way is completely life-threatening, was on top of other injuries and surgeries that Punk had, which he had no time to recover from.
One of my favorite things was where he was talking about how he was out for an injury and took the time to also get eye surgery, and when they threw him back like 3 or 4 weeks early, before he wasn't even cleared, they threw him back in the ring, and that's when the Nexus beat him up.
Yeah.
And he's complaining about, he's like, and some fucker is grating my eyes, and I just had surgery. Yeah, that was Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
So Daniel Bryan was raking his eyes.
That fucker.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of torn with everything about it. Generally speaking, it's a lot of he said, she said. I'm sure some more on the other side will be told. I don't think WWE will really tell their side for a while, at least, and we got that. We got that vibe from Vince McMahon's podcast that he did with Stone Cold this week as well. So, I don't know. It's odd. We've witnessed guys who are obviously injured competing. We've are aware that that seems to be the general thought process for wrestlers is you need to keep your spot, so you wrestle through injuries. Regardless of how critical they are, unless like you're totally incapacitated. But overall, like there's tons of guys that work through injuries that we're aware of. This brought up a new theory behind like why they do it. Is it because they'll lose their spot like we've always been told, or is it because they're not getting the right information from the doctors at WWE? And that's what it seems like we got with Punk. Punk was saying, he was told like totally opposite or totally like different things of what was occurring, like the concussion tests that he was going through, and WWE doctors were basically, telling him he was fine, and he obviously wasn't. So, it does bring to light like another facet of the business that I don't think WWE will survive if they don't they don't act on it soon.
Oh, and can we just highlight the fact that the dude got fired on his wedding day?
Yep. That's pretty important. Vince's reasoning for that and his apology, I feel like it was sincere. Vince was on the Stone Cold podcast after Raw. Was it after Raw?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was a network exclusive. I think it'll be on the Stone Cold's podcast feed later this week. But overall, he apologized, and it was more of like a bureaucracy thing. Like, the HR department doesn't know what these guys are doing. These guys don't know what they're doing. And, and it went through a different channel. It didn't come from Vince. It didn't come from Triple H. It went through, however it went through. I don't know, lawyers or HR or whatever.
I do want to point out, Triple H is VP of talent.
Yeah.
So,
And
just throwing that out there.
so jumping into Vince's podcast, some things that were talked about, and Stone Cold was very adamant that Jim Ross deserved a spot and was needed for this business, for WWE specifically, to run, almost implying that there wouldn't have been a Punk blow up like there was, Punk walking out, if Jim Ross was there, if someone was constantly, talking to Punk like Jim Ross talked to Stone Cold, as the talent relations guy. So, and Vince seemed to be not necessarily open to the idea of JR coming back, but definitely open to the idea that, yeah, we do need to be talking to our talent more, almost throwing Triple H under the bus, which was kind of odd. So,
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that's it. I think overall I enjoyed both podcasts. I enjoyed the CM Punk one, but obviously I have my issues with how CM Punk left. I think this does open up, the possibility that I was wrong. For pretty much the entire time I've been calling him a quitter. I've been disappointed with people chanting CM Punk, but now I'm, more open to the idea of, well, maybe it wasn't all CM Punk. Maybe it was a lot of the politics and the bullshit that got to him that forced him to leave. And, maybe this was a good decision. Plus he didn't quit. He got fired. He took time off and they fired him. So.
Yeah, I mean, there was, I was pretty hard on Punk, or at least to the extent where, I'm like, he fucking quit. Let's fucking move on.
Yeah.
Whatever. I got really tired of the CM Punk, we want CM Punk back stuff. I'm glad that Punk stayed quiet about everything and then just came out and said, okay, here's why.
Yeah.
Like, now that it's died down a little bit, let me explain why. I really appreciate that explanation.
Right.
Granted, it's only one side, and I haven't heard the Stone Cold podcast yet. I just haven't had the time. But, yeah, I appreciate everything he said. And they're going to do a follow-up podcast with Q&A.
Yeah.
People can write in questions. I know our Kevin actually was asking me for that email address because he had just listened to the podcast, and he wants to write in. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is something we want to discuss on another episode. But, yeah, I mean, it's sparking everybody. And I don't know. I'm just very glad that we got an explanation, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm glad it just wasn't I don't like the way they were booking me, so fuck them.
Yeah, I didn't get the main event Mania, so fuck you guys. I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
obviously
granted, the main event of Mania is a big thing to ask.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No one should be able to ask for that.
Sure.
Outside of somebody like Taker. Or, some of these just hugely legacy guys. But Punk actually came, it was nice to see him go, okay, you want Brock Lesnar to go over at this pay-per-view over me. Who's going to be on there? Who's going to be there on Monday?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Me. Where's he at? What do you mean he's not coming back for 3 more months?
And when
Why
Punk
does that
said
make
that,
sense?
yeah, like when Punk said that, I mean, that echoed a lot of the feedback that we had for, like, just the entire last 6 to 8 months of Punk's existence in WWE. It seemed to be awfully booked. Just odd on every single note, like him losing to Rock, him losing to Cena as many times as he did, him losing to Lesnar, him losing to The Undertaker. I mean, you can go on and on about how things were poorly done, and we see that as fans. For Punk to also see that, and for him not to understand why the company doesn't see that, I think that was really telling. So, I don't know. But we're going to go in a little bit more detail, most likely next week. It all depends on what this next part is. If this next part is, worthwhile. I know I'll be listening regardless. But we'll be going a little bit more in depth, and hopefully there is a better response from WWE, like a doctor getting fired, if this is all true, or, some kind of proof that CM Punk is wrong and that here are his test results and all that sort of thing. Like, that's what I want to see happen. I want to see movement from that direction as far as, fixing the problems. That's a huge, huge, major issue that needs to be resolved soon if it is, in fact, an issue. So, but again, we'll talk about it more next week. Let's go ahead. FTW Podcast.